The floor is given to moderator Andrei Vladimirovich Sharonov. Dear colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of the organizers, we welcome you at our forum of this urban conference, Cities and Territories Tomorrow, the Tools for Positive Change. I am Andrei Sharonov. I am Rector of Moscow School of Management. I will be moderating this first plenary session. The issues covered today are common not only for Russian cities, but also for the cities of the world. Clearly, we are in a crisis situation of sequestration of budgets, but the cities should not be oriented at only the strategy of survival. Moreover, complexities are also in the opportunity for new solutions, new ideas, and the Russian cities should not lose such a chance. Our conference is held so as to assist the quality sustainable development of Russian cities. It is organized by the operator of the City Sphere. It's a branch of the NGO, Moscow Urban Forum. This year it will be the 5th time. And since last year, we are having a cross-Russia regional conference as Khabarovsk begins this 2015 year train. The conference is supported by the Moscow Chamber of Trade and Commerce, Moscow School of Management of Skolkovo. Strategic partner is Bank of Moscow, and Vice President Ms. Tatiana Golodets is present and will make a presentation. The direction is KB Strelka. As I mentioned, the Russian cities are facing different issues. The Khabarovsky Krai has specifics and its own opportunities and competitive advantages. They are developing the advanced development territories, new hopes, new institutions of development for particular Russian regions. There is a strategy of intense development for the Far East of Russia and concrete state priorities in the Far East of the country, its role for the country and the world. Khabarovsk is a recognized center of the Far Eastern region. It is the capital of the Far Eastern Federal Okrug and the largest logistics center of the Far East, and education center as well. So today, throughout our sittings at the plenary and roundtable discussions, we shall discuss the strategic goals for efficient development of the city and the Krai in general. And we'll answer the question if we have sufficient effort on behalf of the authorities and the community and the elites to meet the challenges on the agenda. I hope the dialogue of the experts, authorities, and business community will bring new incentives for cultural, economic, and social development of the city and the region. Today, we shall hear also foreign speakers, so please use your headphones for interpreting. I am now introducing the participants of this plenary session. Sergei Vasilievich Ignatovich, Deputy Chairman of the Khabarovsky Krai Government for Construction. Tatiana Yurievna Golodets, Vice President, Bank of Moscow Joint Stock Company, our general partner. Olga Ivanovna Vendina, leading researcher, Geography Institute RAS. Dalia Safiullin, Director, KB Strelka. And besides, today we'll have a telebridge with Jiang Jun, founder and editor of the magazine Urban China, who is the assistant professor of the fine arts in Guangzhou, China. Besides, present and at the round table, we have other participants of this plenary session. This is Anatoly Litvinchuk, Deputy Chairman for the CRY for the Utilities, Alexander Nikolaevich Sokolov, Khabarovsk Mayor, participated in the conference last year in Vladivostok when we for the first time brought such a new form of partnership with the Moscow Urban Forum. Mr. Skamarokov, Minister of Construction, Khabarovsky Krai, Alexander Katsuba, Minister of Finance of the Khabarovsky Krai, and Mr. Platonov, Chief Vice President, Moscow Chamber of Trade and Commerce, and Deputy of Moscow Duma and Chairman of Moscow Urban City Duma, Nina Polichka, NGO, local self-government, I'm a member of the public chamber, Mr. Revzin Grigory, partner of KB Strelka, Grigory Smolyak, Department of Territorial and Social Economic Development of the Ministry of Russian Federation for the Far East. Roman Alisyanov, Counselor, Control Department of the RF President Representative Plenipotentiary for the Far Eastern Okrug. Mr. Kertman, Public Opinion Foundation, Mr. Kushnaryov, Agency for Investment and Development, Petr Lawrence, Vice President ISO-CARP, will make a presentation, Pavel Minaker, Director of Institute of Economic Research, FEBRAS, Alexei Muratov, Partner, KB Strelka, Alexei Novikov, Higher School of Urban Studies, High School of Economy, Sergei Sivayev, Managing Director, Federal Center of Project Finance. We are beginning it, and before we begin, I would like to say that our task is so that everyone present received a pleasure from the presentations. I shall try to move our speakers ahead in brevity and the dialogue towards the dialogue regime, so they communicate with each other. So I'm inviting now Sergei Vasilievich Ignatovich, Deputy Chairman of the Khabarovsky Krai government. Dear participants, on behalf of the Khabarovsky Krai Governor, Vyacheslav Ivanovich Shport, who is now with the delegation in Japan, welcome on our Khabarovsk hospitable land. We are thankful to the organizers and initiators for this conference today. We are the only Far Eastern region with a processing industry. Our aircraft manufacturing and vessel manufacturing facilities produce high-grade products. We develop mining, and we are proud of highly qualified staff. But we also know our weak points, the engineering transportation infrastructure that lags behind, a great depletion of the electrical grids, a lack of social infrastructure, but still our goal is to become an intense development area. We follow the policy of advanced development territories of social and economic development in Khabarovsk and Komsomolsk. We also promote partnership with the APEC, China foremost, and we have great prospects that way. I should mark that our citizens are interested in improving the social, urban and rural environments. They take part in amenity improvements, planting trees in parks and squares. Our citizens discuss current issues. There is a dialogue between the public and the authorities. I think this forum will be an incentive. That's right. We shall look for new ideas and reliable ways for progress. I wish our forum fruitful work and good results. The President of the Russian Federation has set an absolute priority in state policies in the 21st century as a boost the development of Siberia and the Far East. The new model of this macro region is advanced economic development and social environment development. The basis is the inflow of investments in advanced technologies in competitive economic environments and particular points of growth. Our key tool is territories of advanced social and economic development areas, techno parks, business incubators, and in Khabarovsk comes the most Vanina Sovetskaya Gava node. Our task in investment policies is a harmonious development of social agglomerations.
Territories in Khabarovsk agglomeration include three sites: settlement Rakitna, airport Khabarovsk New, and within the industrial park Avangard, totaling 700 hectares. The area of Khabarovsk airport is planned to start the construction of the new hub. Near Rakitna, there will be formed a cluster, including the production of construction materials, metallurgical production, as well as agricultural and food production. Near Avangard, within the industrial park Avangard, there is a complex for processing agricultural products. The main aspect is to consider social well-being of people. Near Rakitna, there is a plan to construct to arrange a territory, recreation territory for the residents. Deurbanization polycentrism is a new paradigm in the development of the city. The development, for example, in suburban Khabarovsk of production and social facilities will facilitate the decrease of load on the main roads within Khabarovsk. Commissioning in 2010 of the motor road of the federal importance, Amur-Chita-Khabarovsk, the transit flow of vehicles through the central part has increased, and the through capacity is much lower. To solve the problem, it is necessary to construct roads, to link the roads within Khabarovsk with the major motor road. Realization of this project will improve the transport and economic situation within the city. It will ensure the construction of road infrastructure near Rakitna. In addition, this road will give an impetus to the implementation of the whole bunch of projects, such as the development of Bolshoy Ussuriysky Island and construction of new airport. Implementation of the project is suggested to implement on the PPP principles. It will create new sources of funding. Airport project. When forming the airport site for the construction of airport, it is planned to use the conception Air City, which stipulates the creation of new passenger and cargo terminal, construction of hotel and business center, as well as trade and entertainment complex. It will create about 1,700 jobs. It also will require the improvement of social infrastructure near Topolivo. Nearby the airport, the plan is to construct a micro-district, Orekhovaya Sopka, comprising 2 micro-districts. The total area of construction is 200 hectares. The housing will be up to 1.5 million square meters. The project envisaged the construction of a kindergarten, school, and other social infrastructures. It also planned to construct 7 kindergartens, a secondary school, polyclinics for 500 visitors per shift, trade and entertainment complex, closed parking and parkings. In the very center of Khabarovsk, the plan is to construct the industrial park of Dal-Energomash. The plan is to construct trade center, to construct housing and multifunctional complex, and there will be also upgraded and improved the road infrastructure. The territory of advanced economic development in Komsomolsk-on-Amur includes 3 sites, about totaling 300 hectares. It has an expressed industrial orientation. The plan is to set up high-tech enterprises and to commission production of machining of parts made of aluminum, titanium, alloys, and steel, cutting instrument and composite materials. Next project which is located in Leninsky Okrug district of Komsomolsk-on-Amur, is meant to improve the social urban environment in the area. The plan is to construct a public center for 6,000 square meters. There will be recreation, culture, sports facilities, medical facilities. Moreover, there will be some other interesting facilities: territorial museum, water and sports entertainment complex, water park, culture and entertainment complex. The main idea is to keep labor in the territory, high professionals in the territory. The site in the city of Amursk is meant to commission the production of value-added wood processing. The site is about 150 hectares. The team, including representatives of the administration of the territory, of city, and other experts, has already been set up. The idea is also to mount such an institute as the end agency with functions of the design office, which will be the prototype of a management company. On the coast of the Tatar coast, there have been formed a logistics Vanina Sovietskaya Gavin Transport Industrial Cluster, which is meant to start the international multi-disciplinary port industry region construction. There have been formed a special economic zone based on Sovietskaya Gavань port. The link element of it is Baikal-Amur mainline. Its upgrading and reconstruction will increase the investment attractiveness of the cluster and will create prospects for serious economic growth. Special economic zone regime is planned to expand to Vanina seaport. Investors in Vanina work on the project on construction of port facilities. Housing is being under construction for the workers of the enterprise, as well as sports and recreation centers. Another major project, Большое Уссурийское Island, it's a unique project. It's also a unique opportunity to test the innovative approach in urban studies. The concept for the development of the island stipulates tourism and recreation and exhibition, spiritual, educational, scientific research, sports activities. There will be arranged a checkpoint. It will facilitate the passenger and cargo passing through. It will become more attractive for tourists. Internal and outside transportation through that point will be along the motor roads. The question of developing transport network on the island Большой Уссурийский is planned to study after introducing by Russian and Chinese sides amendments to the agreement between the governments of Russian Federation and the government of China, concluded in 1994. These changes stipulate bilateral passenger transportation on the island. It will attract tourists who will come by buses, and also minor vehicles will be used for transportation means as well as bicycles. Advanced development of the Russian part of the island and turning it into a modern tourist recreation territory of the international importance requires creation of new conditions for to be engaged in economic activities, favorable for attracting investments and implementation on investment projects, and we are working on it. Our task to harmonically integrate the island into Khabarovsk agglomeration to avoid enclave its development and to achieve complementarity. The mechanism of economic development should be combined with the development social environment. It's a key for stable development of Khabarovsk Krai and its cities. And in this case, the strategy of Khabarovsk, the center of the Far Eastern Federal District Regional Center, its orientation on the development of political, scientific research, culture, education, tourist, and transport potential. Strategy of Komsomolsk-on-Amur is oriented to produce high technology industrial products of the world standards. Thank you for listening.
Thank you. I think what you covered, I suggest further speakers to use a chance to express their viewpoint. You see, for majority of us, this is a new thing because it's the federal government policy which is being forwarded. But the following speakers are not Khabarovsk locals, but they are experts, investors, and in this sense, let us look at them from the viewpoint of expectations. They, as investors, see their assessment of Khabarovsk, strong points, weak points. And the first speaker is Tatiana Yurievna Golodets, Vice President, Bank of Moscow. Once again, it is our partner in the Urban Forum and the regional urban conferences. And certainly each time we go to different regions, we and myself, I'm also there in the board. We look at a particular city or region as a reliable, safe partner for investments, in particular for Bank of Moscow, in the projects. Please, Tatiana, what is your viewpoint, your bank vision, what you like in Khabarovsk, what you don't? Thank you. Dear colleagues, good afternoon. First of all, I would like to thank those present today, the city and Krai authorities, the experts, for giving us this opportunity to get together and exchange opinion. As Andrei justifiably said, find the points of growth. Perhaps they will not look realistic. Maybe we find a reasonable core in them, but we have a chance to exchange opinion. As for Bank of Moscow, it is no chance for us to be here. My greetings to the conference from Mr. Kuzovlev, who was not able to participate at this. We are in here because for the Bank of Moscow, the development is our priority. And we are interested in what is happening in the regions, in the city megapolises. It is connected with our business, but I will speak as an outsider, and perhaps you will find some of my ideas acceptable. I would like to begin with the challenges. Khabarovsk and the Far Eastern cities demonstrates about 40% of people planning leave the region for another one. So this another figure to compare. According to Gallup, about 30% of the British residents would like to leave the British Islands forever. They would like to leave Khabarovsk? No, not yet Khabarovsk. The Gallup didn't ask about it. This, well, we would like to have that. Do you need the British people? Alexander Nikolaevich, according to Zhirinovsky, everyone will come to Russia and the Far East very soon, and the rest will either get drowned or get evaporated. The mystery is we could think about the per capita GDP and to connect it with the outflow, but the things are a bit different. The British have a broader cultural environment. It is the USA, New Zealand, Australia, etc. But the key factor for them taking a decision to leave, to emigrate, is the daily comfort, is a comfortable living environment, the comfort level. And at this moment, it is a major thing. If you compare Slovenia or Czech Republic, GDP, they are behind certainly Britain. Their indicator of the outflow is threefold below that in Britain. Great Britain. As for Khabarovsk and the Far East as such, what could be done so that the social daily infrastructure would be acceptable for the people to continue working and living here? The background for it, for the people to continue living and working here, has been shaped actually. And the former speaker mentioned the region is developing rather successfully. One should mention only that I think in 2014 two larger projects were fully implemented. It is Baikal-Amur 2, Trans-Siberian, and a big pipeline, the Power of Siberia, that will attract a lot of workforce and investment. So that is a good background for the region to be very developed and comfortable. So that background is in place. I would like to speak, to say that besides economy, we need, since the Khabarovsky Krai is good at it, the tourism cluster as well. The international experience, for example, Harbin, it's the closest Chinese cluster to Russia. Annually, they have a large festival called the World of Ice and Snow and Ice, and a lot of ice statues highlighted in castles of actual size and mountains, ice mountains, attended by 14 million people annually. The revenues from this exceeds $2 billion. Why not do it in Khabarovsk? And besides, Khabarovsk has a great natural, even incomparable reaches a plant world, animal world, flora, fauna. Why not use it? If you compare this region with Alaska, I think in 2014 was attended by 2 million tourists visited. And that means about $4 billion revenue from all kinds of entertainment, accommodation, and transportation of tourists. So for Alaska, tourism is the second employer for every eighth state resident. And that is an idea, but to develop in that direction, I understand the tourism industry is in private investments. To bring in private investments, we have to show them not a sparse land, but show the by the CRI authorities and the finance institutions show the regulations clearly drafted. So I'm calling for, together with the industrial parks and advanced development, to also think about tourism recreation cluster in the Khabarovsky Krai. Thank you, Tatiana. And you yourself, do you see such projects? Do you meet people initiating them, either private or public investors connected with tourism and recreational business and ecological aspects? So in the backgrounds of China, which looks very attractive, which is a big market, or it is just a proposal and you have no investment proposals from the Khabarovsky Krai?
We have no proposals from Khabarovsky Krai, that's why I ask you to think about it. We have experience of collaborating with the Ministry of Economic Development as well, because I think that the initiative should come from there. It's difficult for private capital to get through. If it is possible, and we try to do it in other regions, for example, we have an example in Sochi, with the Ministry for Economic Development to work maybe together with the Ministry for Industry to work out the rules, so to speak, of the game and to provide certain benefits for those who will come to the territory. Then it will be possible to implement these projects. I agree with you. In doing so, we should look at the financial and loan policy of our neighbors, also political decisions. So he wants to say, look at your interest. Well, political decisions also, or for example, Vladivostok, more than 5 billion rubles were invested in the territory. Of course, when the financial policy of the federal government is changed, the situation here will also change. It should be different. It will be possible to attract investors. They are ready, but when they look at the project and try to see the end, what will come as a result of it, when they see the benefits from it, of course, investors understand that they have to use short money, and it is really short. In this case, we should not forget about global projects which can bring more benefit. Political decisions has been taken already. For example, a road around the city. Unfortunately, the bank sphere is very cautious with respect to this kind of projects, even when we have federal funding for the projects. Unfortunately, we'll try to do our best. Alexander Nikolaevich, you are asked to work, but you resist. Pavel Alexandrovich, you've been called for more years, and you even stopped resisting. So the question is, why to resist? As a moderator, I want to say break. Alexander Nikolaevich, now leave us for some time. He is to, to attend the ceremony of opening a new kindergarten. After lunch, he will join us. He will make a presentation at the plenary session. And now I want to give the floor Olga Ivanovna Vendina. And with respect to Tatiana's presentation, I want to draw your attention to many successfully completed projects related to economic events. When we speak about cities, and of course we speak about cities, many projects are started from the scratch. No rich history of the city, no rich nature. Actually, from zero, the people think about interesting events, and those events which at first glance look funny, but based on them they attract many tourists. As a result of it, they construct infrastructure, and as a result of it, a big economy emerges as a result of it. Yesterday we considered the situation in Finland, Oulu city, where they thought about the festival, about artistic whistling, and people from Europe come to that place, and revenues are really substantial for such a small city. Where is Oulu and where Khabarovsk, where artistic whistling, and where the Amur River and other riches of the country? Of course, we should think about entrepreneurial initiatives. We should think about this territory because it is really attractive ecologically as well. Olga Ivanovna, please. Thank you for an opportunity to make a presentation. Since we started talking about different type of economy and about other opportunities, I also will talk about other opportunities which are given to Khabarovsk and Khabarovsk Krai thanks to its proximity to another country. I want to speak about the state border not as a problem, because as a rule this notion is associated with some geopolitical issues, but I will approach from the point of development, economic development. Any opportunity is related to different kind of limitations. And the first thing I would like to draw your attention to is that cross-border cooperation, which is often discussed in case of neighboring countries. And so we should speak about two notions. When we speak about intergovernmental cooperation, then the subjects of this kind of activity, as a rule, big business is involved. When we speak about cross-border cooperation, the players are local communities and local authorities, regional authorities and municipal as well. And what we have today in Khabarovsk territory and in Khabarovsk as a city, it's intergovernmental cooperation, including those projects which are related to Большое Suritsky Island. What is the result of putting together these two notions? Because those expectations when local players have, as a result of that cooperation, are disappointing. A certain disappointment people feel in this respect. First of all, it turns out that those cross-border or near-border large investments from which people expect great benefits. As a rule, effects are not so exciting because not so much that these investments work for the city, but on the contrary, either the city or the region work to attract these investments and to create stable conditions for their functioning. The other thing is that the impulse for the development cross-border territories give not so much large projects, but SMEs, small businesses, and immediate contacts among residents. The other thing is that all these large investment projects and programs are extremely sensitive, vulnerable to external policy of the federal government. If we take the policy of sanctions, the period we are coming through, we're living in, then we know that what kind of serious problems emerge as a result of introduction of these sanctions. And of course, certain negotiation mechanisms are required to develop regions. Now the question is to what extent the cross-border cooperation might be useful for such a region as Khabarovsk territory, for such a city as Khabarovsk. What are arguments against it? First of all, low density of population. 600,000 residents. It's a huge city, but it's very close to the state border. As to the low density of the population, we can't use those approaches and conceptions which are used in the European part of the European countries, because as a rule they speak about cross-border cooperation. But there is a different approach which is used by the Chinese side, for example. The idea of the near border territory as the center of economic development, where favorable regime for cooperation is established, and the other important thing is the uniqueness of the situation. The situation in Khabarovsk is not so unique, and even in the Russian Federation we have accumulated sufficient experience in cross-border cooperation between very large cities and even territories, and in this respect we can speak about the fact that it's possible what can be reached in case of cross-border cooperation and what should be taken into account, but what can't be achieved.
What can't be achieved by trans-border cooperation. The first thing is compensating for a social and economic crisis and a deficit of regional development. The trans-border cooperation is a catalyst of local growth because it accelerates all reforms and modernization coming from the region, initiated by the region, or the outside factors, the federal authorities and the country goals. Additional requirements are put forward to legislation, investment regime, and everything else which makes the region react to these responses and make it solve the task. The second, it is impossible to overcome controversy between the national security and economy openness, because cooperation requires maximum openness, but security issues will always restrict seriously. It is the cross-border cooperation policy, always controversial in its essence, with peaks of warming up and cooling periods and disappointments in this tool. And finally, we cannot separate politics and economy as different spheres. We often hear that economy follows politics, but it is vice versa. economy can exist only to the extent the political tasks have been solved and the political goals set. It is much very clear in the transborder regions. Any economy project here in such areas becomes a political one if we look at the experience for one Theamua, one river, two countries. This is a typical geopolitical slogan, a realistic one. If we take the Chinese one, used Благовещен, two states, one city, that is a political and romantic slogan. So any project of transborder cooperation somehow geopolitical in character. What can be resolved by transborder cooperation? First of all, it is the cross-border rent advantage should be out of shadow. The cooperation between the people in the transborder economy, that is 80% shadow economy, that is also a requirement, a prerequisite for sustainable development and enhancing this living standard. The people, shuttle traders and other things, they benefit, but we should cut off the criminal component in transborder cooperation. The second, launching the mechanism of forming a unified local labor markets and employment. Since the flows exist, they are in the shadow economy sector, and often there are parallel forms of activity on both sides of the border. To avoid it completely is impossible, but to rationalize it, it is. Coming to a consensus in setting common transborder problems, in finding out, because a river basin divides and it brings the problems of ecology, economy all along the Russian border. It is this fear that very often launches the mechanisms for transborder cooperation, because to solve these issues, everyone is ready to solve them and channel towards it. Another important sphere, at least political, it is education and accumulating knowledge of each other. And another very important task is promoting a culture of geopolitics. This culture of geopolitics is between the states and between larger cities. And the sphere of impact of large cities, the sphere should be much broader than its actual metropolitan area. And this transborder cooperation for Khabarovsk is important for its partners with China and even moreover with Russia, like Vladivostok, Blagoveshchensk and other cities that are in this area. The closer the contacts between the cities on the Russian side are, the more beneficial they will be for the Chinese side. Well, am I running out of time? What prevents implementing the potential of cross-border partnership? It is the social and economic asymmetry and peripheral character of transborder regions against the centers where the solutions are taken. Because it is deformed towards the more strong and active partners and initiators of projects, they become beneficiaries. Because there are the project management, facilities, finance, and benefits go there from the projects. Though they are beneficial, but preferentially go to centers. I'm showing a graph public opinion polled who gains more from trans-border trade in the Primorsky Krai. The blue line shows Russians, the red line Chinese. The Chinese assess their benefits much higher than the Russians do. It doesn't mean we have fewer possibilities. We have less initiative and worse developed tools for such a form. Olga Ivanovna, how much objective is that data? Maybe these are phobia and over-exaggerated expectations from the Chinese side, phobia on the Russian side, or whatever. I'm afraid it's impossible to reach an objective view because an idea of a benefit or lack of benefit is subjective impressions is the material for sociologists. Such estimates concern our participation as individuals. Maybe this is close to real situation. An example, if we look, which is not correct, we look at the European Union border and Russian-China border. So the border where there is an interested party intensely forwarding its integration projects and trade projects is getting the advantage. This is the rule for a passive and an active player. Point 4 is important, is symbolic barriers and lack of trust. In cross-border cooperation, so such symbolic barriers and lack of mutual trust are much higher than economic factors. So apparent symbolic barriers don't bring economic benefits. So cross-border cooperation, when we spoke yesterday, we came to the nearby, we visited the nearby hall. The picture painting depicting signing the treaty by the governor of Siberia. That is one of the barriers. Count Muravyov-Amursky is facing us. On the map, he is drawing the borderline, delineating the borderline with his back to us are the Chinese accepting the terms. As a result, in Chinese textbooks, we have the negative description of Russian behavior of acquiescing the lands. So that is another practice. Сейчас. No. That is accepted on the Russian side as a pressure from China. So we need maybe a symbolic other policy. The same way as we spoke about tourism, imagery, a well-weighted symbols policy to overcome the barriers that are centuries old, because the Russian Federation or the PRC, they are closed countries. For centuries they have been looking inward and afraid of outward contacts. It's important to treat the banking sector differentially. And that also concerns a need to develop the regional policy in the Russian Federation that would consider such transborder regions or zones as an entity, as a player in regional policy. Another important barrier for transborder cooperation is the differing legislation. Our strategic programs of development should pay attention to the strategies of our neighbor. That is typical of the Russian regions and even more of the transborder territories. And finally, the last thing is a low level of civil society, which deprives this cooperation some features, and they become interstate cooperation instead of cross-border interregional ones. So not much is brought to the regional and city development. Thank you for your attention. Thank you, Olga Ivanovna. I would like to pay attention to a very important thing, common, important for us with our mentality, love for grand scale, big territories, big spaces. It is a SMEs development. Only the lazy one ignores the topic, and we lag behind very much in this segment, in the share in the GDP and RDP. We are accustomed to large-scale projects, accumulating tax revenues from large enterprises, but in a crisis, it is impossible to deal without the immense ocean of SMEs, because they are the absorber, taking the people released from the big industries. The big industry is less flexible. And now we see again, once and again, the development of the environment is important. The regime of the projects that is on the agenda, letting in the environment that employs a lot of locals, generates jobs, sometimes not many, 5 to 10, but total it is another scale of economy, not a large business economy, which is now hand managed and makes us richer in the good times and unsustainable in the bad times. This is what I always observe in cities, regions, and the country. Here is Ms. Safiulina, the Big Ussuriski Island.
As Olga, I also would like to speak about the cooperation between China and Russia on the borderline between two countries, because the Большой Ussuriski Island is a unique example of near-border territory, and all those principles which can be considered can be illustrated using this case. Look, in 2004, an agreement was signed on the Russian-China state border, and as a result of it, the western part of the island was transferred under the jurisdiction of China. In recent years, as a result of activities of China, we see the following picture. We see the international airport, railway terminal, bridge, a very comfortable embankment, and on the island, the highest, the most eastern paddock of China, and also water park. And today, this paddock and water park attracts about 1,000 tourists from China a day. The thing is that we see on the right side of this slide, it is Russian side, still wetland here. At the background, we see some abandoned facilities, military facilities. So we see the difference. Also, if we look at the map, we see that here, Fuyuan is located here. because now the population is 40,000 people. By 2020, the government of China promises that the population will be 1 million people, which exceeds not only population of city, but of all territories taken together, which are nearby the state border with China. If to follow the vector of relationship between Russia and China, we can do it on the basis of the evolution of the concept for the development of Большой Уссурийский Island. Several conceptions have been put forward, but none of them has been implemented. All of them are centered on the cooperation. At first, it was suggested to construct cargo and passenger checkpoint, and then it was decided that it will be not so much an economic but cultural cooperation, and so it's necessary to think about recreational facilities. In previous conceptions, there was a gambling zone, of course, which have not been agreed and did not conform the state policy, and as a result of that, there was a necessity to develop the concept which does not contradict the policy of Russia. As a result, we can see the core of the project. The heart of the Russian Far East is a symbol, and it includes spirituality, nature, culture, and good neighborliness. These are the main ideas of the project, the main values, cultural values. As a result of detailed work with experts, we singled out common values such as family, patriotism, and some other things. We also analyzed the state policy of both countries, and as a result of it, we worked out the main directions science, nature, family, patriotism, and we should focus on these directions, and they should be considered while implementing our joint projects. Therefore, these principles formed the principles of planning, the functional planning of the island. 3 functional zones are suggested: international, national, and regional. The laboratory of international cooperation, laboratory of national identity, and also and another regional zone, a central park of Khabarovsk agglomeration. When we start speaking about the projects related to good neighborliness, we come across a very serious problem. It's a challenge, ecology of the Amur River. Flooding. As we see on this map, as a result of flooding in 2013, you see there was an island. Practically the entire part of China was covered with water, as well as the Russian side, most of the Russian side. As a result, there is no coordination between 2 countries how to deal with these kind of disasters. So we suggest to create a joint system of flood protection in order not only to work out this, to draft this system, but also to engage in the reconstruction, rehabilitation of the Amur River. We suggested to work out the project of cross-border and intergovernmental cooperation with respect to the Amur River. It will deal with hydraulic engineering, ecology, endemic species. We have found already potential investors. Again, the idea is to make Russia and China leader in hydraulic engineering studies. We know that there is a deficit of potable water in northern parts of China, which in case of purification of Amur, it will help to solve this problem for them. As far as cooperation with two countries are concerned, of course we should speak about the achievements of two countries. It's a kind of exhibition which includes three models. Biennale in Venice, International Exhibition, and Business Expo. As Olga Ivanovna mentioned already, it's important not only to arrange international cooperation, but cooperation within the country. Here you can see the pavilions of different parts of the Russian Federation. When we speak about events, this ground can attract such large events as Russian-Chinese Economic Forum, which takes place in China once in 2 years, and it's possible to have it here. A symbolic core of the project is spirituality, is that term which we didn't know how to translate into Chinese because it has its own connotation in different languages. It's respect to traditions of both countries, to national identity in each country, and we believe that Padoga somehow symbolizes this term, and as an example of it, our suggestion is to construct a church, a cathedral, Russian cathedral of Orthodoxy on the Russian side of the island. If we have a broader look at it, we can have two outposts of two cultures. Remember, in Paris there was a contest of Russian spiritual cultural competition, and the other one in the East. Here you can see one of the assets of the Khabarovsky Krai is nature, and going back to that asset, it can create the basis for the development of tourism, and considering that on Chinese side they have a water park, we can have also something similar on our side. As for the scale of agglomeration, it can be the main park of Khabarovsk, of course, which will be different from the regular city park, but we can see that this idea has a great potential. And here we see the general plan, master plan of the city of Khabarovsk, and those directions which have been mentioned in my presentation, they are not indicated here, and I believe that primarily for the implementation of our project we should have an integrated approach to the development of the city of Khabarovsk and to include these ideas into this general plan. Thank you. As for this Большой Ussuriysky Island, we have already talked about it. Thank you, Gilya. And now we have another presentation of Zhang Jun, founder of magazine Urban China, assistant professor of the Academy of Fine Arts. He is supposed to get in touch with us via bridge. So the question is, are we ready? Okay, then let's do it.
Zhang Jun, do you hear us?
Hello?
Hello.
Can I talk now?
Yes, we do not see you yet, but hopefully we will do it. So welcome on board. We are on the conference, urban conference in Khabarovsk, and we would like welcome you here for joining us. And we do expect your short presentation regarding our cooperation between Russia and China. And your samples regarding the urbanization of China. Please, floor is yours. Пожалуйста, возьмите наушники. Мы начинаем. Mr. Jiang, please.
Yeah. I'm very pleased to be part of the forum. Because of the visa issues, I cannot be present in Khabarovsk, so I'm very sorry about that. And in case the Wi-Fi signal is very bad, so I write down my talk into text so that you can read from the slides. The same one river, two countries reminds me of the national policy of one country, two systems in China, which is applied to some of the special regions, such as Hong Kong, along China's borderline of governance. And simultaneously, the special zone, such as Shenzhen, is created by transforming the borderline into border zone and benefited from being physically between the two borderlines. The borderline city becomes a city within the borderlines instead of being along the borderlines. And recently, after 30 years of extensive development, the free trade zones are founded to release further freedom. And this time, it's again transforming the previous borderline into border zone and becoming the special zone in the special zone. Slide 2. This is a typical process of what I call fractalization of city, in which the further development of the system is processed in ways that local parties become similar with the integral, but in a relative micro scale. If a special zone is an entity with a certain autonomy, the special zone of special zone is intensification, with more special policies and a higher autonomy. Slide 3. To a broader point of view, the development of the whole country of China is a similar process of fractalization. And China has changed from an equalitarian country to special regions, each with its specified goal of development. The questions are how to balance their interests with internal resources and meet the general goal of the state as a whole. This region is a cluster of coordinated special zones is different from that of civilization, the federation, and the confederation. Slide 4. Apparently, the world is a similar cluster of special regions, politically or economically. The ultimate special regions are only two kinds, the land and the sea. From a geopolitical point of view, the recent 500 years has been a process that the sea power prevailing containing land power, and the land power seeking to break through. The recent national policy of China, One Belt, One Road, is not only about reintegrate the Asian continent economically, but seeking an international position, which is still monopolized by sea powers. All SDR currencies, IMF, sea powers, US dollars, euros, Japanese yen, the British pounds. The ambition of the new Silk Road is to internationalize the currency of the traditional land power. Slide 5. The competition between land power and sea power is greatly influenced by the evolution of the transportation infrastructure. If we understand the world as the competition between the onshore powers of the Eurasian continent and the offshore powers of the island around it, it's the competition between the continental and oceanic transportation technology that had greatly influenced the emergence of the coastline cities and countries such as Singapore, and the shrinkage of the hinterland cities, such as Samarkand. And ultimately, which currency is dominating in the transcontinental exchange of resources, products, between the markets of the two ends of the Eurasian continent? Slide 6. The recent progress of high-speed railway in China, where 16 kilometers HSR is already in operation, is a signal for the return of land power. The following diagrams, entitled with parallel Silk Roads, was made by myself in early 2011 when I was teaching in Straka in Moscow. Now, as we can see, corresponding strategies are being materialized. One Belt, One Road from China, Asian Union from Russia. Linked by HSR, a network of special zones is in emerging hinterland of the continent, mostly along the traditional sides of the Trans-Siberian Railway, in which Khabarovsk and Vladivostok will be the dragonheads, while the currency of the land powers will be replacing that of the sea powers during the Eurasian exchange through the political structures such as Shanghai Cooperation Organization and the financial structures such as Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank. Slide 7. China and Russia are similar in their unbalanced developments between East and West. Here I'm using a map of USSR for geographical comparison. And both is trying to rebalance the East and the West through the continental channels, which used to be called the Silk Roads. Slide 8. The two Silk Roads, bridging the developed and the developing, are complementary between themselves. Russia's developed west to China's developing west, and China's developed east to Russia's developing east. One river, two countries in Khabarovsk is thus essentially a bilateral special zone between the Silk Roads, exchanging resources, labor, food, low-tech and high-tech productions, together with tourists from both sides, as well as money. However, it is not until the update of the Trans-Siberian Railway with HSR, together with the relevant financial infrastructure materialized, where Khabarovsk met with the next explosive growth. All efforts today should be preparations for this expectation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Junk. Unfortunately, we do not have enough time for the Q&A session, so thank you once again, and we will move further with our conference.
Yep. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you, goodbye.
Colleagues, we have some 10 minutes more.
I would like to address those participants who are sitting around the table. If you would like to briefly comment those subject matters which have been discussed today already. In the morning, of course, it refers to your attitude towards the strategy of Khabarovsk and Khabarovsk territory and what was verbalized by Vice Governor and expectations on behalf of business mentioned by Tatiana Golodies and from federal structures related, for example, to territories of advanced economic development, to your attitude towards the experience of this kind of cooperation on Большой Ussuriysky Island. Of course, it's a really unique experience, not only in the history of Russia-China relationship, but in the history of cooperation between cross-border territories. I remind you that our session includes the name of the Amur River, so your assessment of the impact of this river, problems which it creates, and possibilities at the same time. So we have some time. Please, you're welcome. Nina Palichka. Hello. I'd like to thank all speakers. Very interesting presentations, and primarily Olga Vendina, because she touched up a very important aspect, the correlation between Russians and Chinese people. At the end of the last century, it was said that future conflicts will occur in near border territories in the context of different civilizations. So here we're dealing not only on the borderline between two different countries, but on the borderline between two civilizations. So there is a kind of risk, of course, but we should do our best to ensure that we have neighborly good relations. This problem has been dealt with by the Council of Europe for a long time, and such tool was used as they worked out a special program of teaching history in the territories close to the borderline. From the point of view of good neighborliness, in this connection, I quote our leading historians. What is being told to our children about China? It turns out that during all the years of teaching, Chinese subject occupies about 5 hours a year. Totally. It means that 1 hour a year. No examples related to good neighborliness between two countries at all. So the issue related to education, it's a priority today, and the situation with China is a vivid example. What can be done through the system of education in 20 years to bring up a different generation with a different mentality? That's why I believe, as a result of our today's session, the question of education of children from the point of view of geography and history, strengthening the role of bilateral relations between China and Russia. These are very important issues. Early in the 20,000, the regional component was cancelled from the history subject, and regional one was left. It was possible to add some additional courses, but school director, as a manager of educational establishment, can take a decision. Of course, director is not capable to deal with cross-border issues, but as for the educational aspect concerning our unique situation, cross-border cooperation between two countries, it should be included into the program, into the timetable on history as a subject of secondary school. So we should eliminate the disbalance in the opinion of two peoples towards each other. Okay, thank you, Vladimir Mikhailovich. You're welcome. One of the tools of positive changes is the system. It's better? Yeah. One of the most important tools of positive changes is the system of taxation. It's not for nothing that in Kabalsky territory there was adopted a system of taxes for economic zones and individual businessmen. This taxation climate is a very important issue. In Moscow, there was a session of the Federal Duma where this issue was discussed, and there were representatives of the companies, and there was used such a term as tax shock caused by the actions as a result of introducing amendments into the taxation legislation. But of course, in this case, we speak about big businesses like a huge trade center as compared to shopping stall. The question was about big trade centers which do not pay any kind of taxes. Of course, a lot has been done to simplify the system of taxation. Amendments into the federal government were introduced for big trade centers to pay taxes as well, but we should keep in mind that taxes is not only the source of revenues for the budget, money which is to be used for improving our life, but it has also a regulatory principle. It's a system of benefits for others. socially vulnerable. Of course, tax holidays have been introduced for SMEs in Moscow, but the most important thing is that any changes in economic laws, including taxes, they occur considering proposals put forward by Commerce Chamber and trade complexes. In May 11-12, there was a conference of commerce chambers of 6 big cities: Berlin, Moscow, London, Paris, Beijing, and St. Paulo. And they worked out a joint agreement to continuously exchange experience of commerce chambers. I think that the proceedings of this conference will be very interesting for those who are engaged in this kind of work, which is taking place now here in Khabarovsk, in the cross-border territory. As for the theme, a city comfortable for life, now again, taking Moscow as an example, internet space, which gives a lot of possibilities, and one of them is to get direct information from residents. What kind of problems or inconveniences they have in their everyday life. It will make possible to facilitate the process of improving the social sphere. All public organizations which represent interests of business, they also can use this space for communication. And of course, it will be possible to solve the problems of people, residents of this city, and to deal with their immediate concerns with their housing, with their apartments, the access to their apartments, and others. Thank you. Grigory Smolyak, head of the Department for Territorial Socio-Economic Development of the Far East of Russia. I would like to return to the project which was discussed and presented by Strelka, Большой Ussurietsky Island. It's not just it's a very applied project. We've developed the concept for the development of the island is been approved by 14 bodies of the government, and in the nearest future it will be submitted to the government of the Russian Federation. And there are 3 key aspects. It's the establishment of cargo passenger checkpoint, hydraulic dam protection dams for the fact that the project is implemented, it will raise the value of that island for both sides. And as soon as the conception is approved, of course, we will need funding. And of course, we have already some potential investors, and they should be ready to invest. And again, the issue is about passenger checkpoint and hydraulic facilities of primary importance. And here the principle is to make those hydraulic facilities a closed circle, closed ring, and they should be used by both sides. They will guarantee safety, and I believe that this project is very important and will be implemented in the nearest future. And we are a frontier zone as well, Blagoveshchensk, Vladivostok, and Khabarovsk as well. And as a result of these infrastructural transformations which take place, the fact that we are nearby the borderline and we have such a great neighbor as China, it's not only just it's a key factor for the development of the cross-border territory. And we're coming to an end for developing the concept for the development of the Far Eastern Federal District, which will be approved in the nearest future. We pay a lot of attention to it. And on Monday there will be in Khabarovsk a demographic conference, All Russia conference, demography of the Russian Far East, Ministry for the Development of the Far East sponsors this or hosts this conference. All regions will participate, representatives of the regions will attend of the conference. There will be discussed different issues related to demography, outflow or incoming flows of populations, and many others. And I believe that this meeting somehow is a prologue to the conference which will take place next week. Thank you, Grigory. A question by way of conclusion. What kind of arguments you put forward to the potential investors with respect to the Большое Уссурийское Island? For example, for me as an investor, it will be more interesting, for example, to work on this island with the risk of flooding rather than on the continental part of the territory in Khabarovsk itself. As it was said, one island, two countries, but we expect we will be able to attract a lot of Chinese tourists. It will facilitate the development of the island. It will create special conditions for their staying, and as Tatiana said, it's a very vivid example event for this territory. Those facilities which will be constructed, they will be meant primarily for Chinese tourists. If we come out on the embankment of the Amur River and look in the direction of China, we will see that Padaga, this is the most eastern part of China, and many Chinese tourists are eager to come that place. It's very symbolic. Here they want to see the sunrise, and in case we develop this territory, it will attract more Chinese tourists. We still have 2 minutes for 2 more presentations, and Roman and Piotr, you're welcome.
I'm from Mr. Trutnev's staff. 2 proposals. Let's not speak only about the island for investors, because investors need a recoupment. The idea was for the city and the CRI to think how to bring the investors onto the mainland. So actually, the island project would feed the long-term project. Thank you to KB Strelka. Yuri Petrovich, April the 5th, set the task to take a different view. And we got acquainted with Strelka and began much work together. So we are attracting a federal agenda here, a global agenda, I should say. Much work ahead, and much has been done. Almost a year passed, and the concept is already before the government to be approved, endorsed. I think 7 concepts have been previously before. Now this one shows a good rate. Thank you. As far as I know, Yuri Petrovich Trutnev yesterday or today is having a conference on Большое Уссурийское Island, and Mr. Brusnikin preferred his society to our conference. Yes, we shall criticize him for it. Yesterday was the conference. The concept is about ready. He will bring the evidence, the aftermaths. So, Peter.
Well, okay. First of all, thank you very much for inviting. I did? Okay. Thank you very much for inviting for this very interesting conference. And since we are out of time, just a couple of the very brief comments about this. It's my first time in Khabarovsk and the first time in this part of Russia in general. And with great interest, I have heard all the information about what actually is planned and what is going on. But also, even the more interesting part, which is I didn't hear that's in here so far. And that's what actually Ms. Tatiana from Moscow Bank has been mentioning a little bit, which means the quality of life. And that's something which I think is very important and very crucial for the future development of the city, as the large-scale infrastructure of course, it is very important. We need it, but it's far not enough to guarantee the safe development for the future of the entire region. What is the guarantee is the people, the quality of life, which will actually attract people to come here, not as a tourist for 1, 2, 3 or 5 days from China, but to live here and to develop and to spend their lives here. And that's what I assume, what I think is very important, is that we need both. We need both projects. Of course, we need these projects because we need kind of to establish our position here, but we also need very much the projects for people and the projects by people and the projects from the people. And it will be very interesting also to hear actually what the citizens of Khabarovsk are thinking about, what they need, what they want, but also what the local elites are thinking about in terms of the culture of the city, of the future of the city, of the identity and the uniqueness of the city. That's something which can build the competitive position of Khabarovsk in much bigger way and much better way than a number of the hard projects. I don't say they are not necessary. They are very necessary because you cannot have a proper economic hub without the transportation hub, airport city, and all the other things. These are absolutely necessary and essential projects, but it's far not enough, and I think we have to remember about that. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. By the way, we have 3 sessions more for today's, and I hope that the most of questions will be covered during the sessions. By the way, maybe you could explain in a couple of words about your organization, ISOCARP, what is about.
Well, very briefly speaking, we are the International Society of City and Regional Planners. We gather over 800 people from 80 countries around the globe. We are 50 years old this year, actually. And we are dealing with all aspects of urban development, urban planning and regional planning, from actually urban design to regional planning, implementation of projects and all the other things. And we are doing very, very different things in our lives, so to speak, from congresses through workshops, through different types of advisory activities and so on. And it was a great pleasure to establish last year through a very interesting cooperation with Moscow Urban Forum. We have been doing together a very interesting workshop in Moscow on the VDNH area, and the presentation from that is available and will be also published very, very soon. Actually, we are a kind of, so to speak, a global organization of planning professionals, not of organizations, not of companies, but of the individual people who are dealing with the very diverse topics in urban planning and development issues in a very broad sense of this issue.
Thank you, Peter.
I would like to say that this evening Peter Lawrence will make a presentation and give a lecture at Pacific State University. It's an open event. Everyone is invited. Dear colleagues, our agenda is coming to a close for this first plenary session. I would like to thank everyone for taking part in it and those who made presentations and listened. I don't want to draw the final remarks. I think at the final session we shall summarize. Thank you. A break now.